Welcome back to Never Did It. I'm Brad Garoon, and I'm here with Jake Ziegler. On Never Did It, we look at the past 100 years of movie history in an effort to fill in some of our own movie blind spots. And today we're tackling the year 1971, the year of Timothy Bottoms.
Which I did not realize when we picked these movies.
It's all Bottoms all the time. It's his first two movies we're covering. Let's do them chronologically. His first movie, which is Johnny Got His Gun. That's what you recommended for me. Why did you do it, Jimmy, please?
Well, I did it because I had seen this movie a long time ago. I think I know it played at the Traverse City Film Festival. I want to say it was in 2008 or 2009. It was like a re-release or had been rediscovered or whatever it was. I think it had maybe never come out on DVD before or something, whatever it was. So it was 2008 or 2009, and I remember seeing it at the film festival that year, and it was really cool. It's very different. It's a very obvious anti-war movie. We've covered a few of those in the past, and we spent a lot of time talking about All Quiet on the Western Front, and I knew it kind of had a reputation as, being kind of a little different, little avant-garde, and I thought it would be something that you would be into. What I did not know is that apparently Metallica very famously used it in a music video that the entire world knows about that I did not. So that did not factor into my decision. I just had seen it, had been a long time since I had seen it, and also selfishly, in addition to thinking that you would like it and thinking we would have a good conversation about it, I just thought it was time for me to watch it again because it had been so long.
Yeah, so I knew about this movie already because of Metallica, because I grew up on this planet. I've seen the one music video many times. It gave me nightmares as a kid. It really freaked me out, so I was kind of nervous about watching the movie. The reason it freaked me out is Joe, the main character of this movie, is dealing with the most claustrophobic thing a person can deal with, which is he's a World War I American soldier, very young, and he's 18 years old. He gets hit by an artillery shell, and they have to amputate his arms and legs, and he loses every feature in his face as well. His mouth, his nose, his eyes. And he's stuck in a bed, and a general has said that he is decerebrated, so he's not conscious. And that's wrong. He is. He's aware of everything that's happening around him. He can't see it, hear it, respond, but he's feeling it all. And he can feel who's in the room based on the vibrations on the floor. He can feel whether or not he feels all the bandages on him. He's going through hell in his mind. He's trapped in his body. So I can't think of a more claustrophobic thing to experience than that. And what I didn't know, what's not expressed in Metallica's One, is that this goes on for years. He's trapped in this bed for years, to the point that the man who diagnosed him with being decerebrated goes gray in the intervening years. So I hated that. I like the movie. Calling it avant-garde is super appropriate. It was way more psychedelic, fantastical, ethereal than I had expected. I thought that the movie was going to be him in the bed, what he's experiencing, and then him remembering his past. But what I liked is that it's not about him remembering his past. It is about him remembering his past, but you only see it as he remembers it. And so, Jesus Christ, as played by Donald Sutherland, shows up in his memories of war. It was a perfect role for Donald Sutherland. His father is played by Jason Robards. I watched Parenthood the other day. This is a very different role for Jason Robards.
It's one of my wife's favorite movies. We watched it fairly recently. I love it.
Yeah, it's good. And Robards is such a jerk in it. And in this movie, Bottoms does have a complicated relationship with his father, who we see has died right before Bottoms goes to war. But the way that Joe, as played by Bottoms, remembers his relationship with his father throughout the movie is very strange. And almost certainly, I think, can be interpreted as not the way it actually happened, but the way a young boy would internalize some of these things. Like his father telling him that he loves his fishing pole more than he loves him because his fishing pole is one of a kind and unique. And how could a young American boy, possibly distinguish himself amongst all the many American boys there are? And truly, he doesn't. He goes to war at 18 and becomes this vegetable. Not a vegetable, becomes this potato in a bed.
Yeah.
Oof. So before I get into more of what I thought about the specifics, it was a tough watch. Annie would not watch a single scene with me. And I had to watch it in 3 parts because it did give me a panic attack at one point.
Yeah, it's horrifying. I mean, to be in a place, where there is literally nothing you can do. That's an expression like, oh yeah, there was, nothing I could do about it. But I mean, yeah, in some cases there were things you could do about it. But in this case, I mean, there's no communication. And I mean, at least for a while, he does figure out how to do Morse code by, banging his head against his pillow. He can communicate that way. But even then, what he does communicate, they don't agree to. He wants to either be paraded around in a, like a glass case as
a freak show.
Yeah, freak show, as here's what happens when you go to war. Barring that, he's like, kill me. And they will do neither of those things. once he started to communicate, and then I realized, like, okay, now it's even worse. It's a hard watch. I mean, and then when it's over, there's nothing that would lead you to believe anything's going to get any better for anyone. Yeah, everything about it is worse. The movie just depreciates the entire time. Like, the value of his, or the quality of his life depreciates from where it is at the beginning, which is already about as bad as it could possibly be, and then it somehow gets worse over the 2 hours.
In the second act of the movie, things are starting to improve for him a little bit. He's able to figure out how to mark time. He was able to figure out when Christmas is, so from there he can know like at what point of the year he's in. A nurse takes pity on him, and she opens the windows. She'll touch him. She gives him like something to look forward to instead of just this endless abyss of doped up hallucinations. And then when he starts communicating, they take that all away because they become afraid of him, and they lock him in like the deepest, darkest dungeon that could possibly be. It is, I would say, the bleakest ending to a movie I've ever seen. I used to give that to First Reformed, just in terms of like hopelessness. This is much more hopeless. That being said, now I'm going to critique it a little bit. Mm-hmm. So the scenes happening in real time are in black and white, and his fantasies are in color. And I like that because it sort of gives you how bleak is his present versus how promising was his past. Yeah. And also, like, he can't see, so there needs to be something removed from what we're seeing. In fact, it would have been really brave to do those scenes without anything on the screen at all. But that'd be pretty tough. I thought the performances in the flashbacks were largely pretty bad. Jason Robards, I don't know what he was directed to do. We should mention this is Dalton Trumbo's only directorial effort.
I should have mentioned that as part of the reason I would have chosen it for you. Yeah. I think it's a good historical curiosity.
Right. So Trumbo, did he win an Academy Award for writing?
Yes, several, but under different names.
Oh, or given to different people. Because he was banned from Hollywood?
He was blacklisted, yeah.
Yeah. He's one of the brains behind Spartacus. Spartacus is like, its entirety is credited to him, Kubrick, and Douglas, because none of them could agree on anything, but pieces of what they all liked made it into the movie. And together they all got it over the finish line. There was a movie about him starring Bryan Cranston that came out a few years ago.
Oscar nomination for Cranston.
But this is the only movie he ever directed. And it feels like a movie from a first-time director. A first-time director with a lot of ideas. I'm glad I saw it because, I don't know, the performances are just pretty, Bottoms feels pretty green. And then all the other people around him, except for Sutherland, who kind of just like blows everybody else out of the water. Yeah. It feels like a TV movie. In fact, a lot of it feels like a TV movie. And some of that might be because this movie was, like you said, almost completely forgotten. Not because it was bad, but just because a lot of movies come out and not all of them are going to stand the test of time. And it wasn't until '88 when Metallica put this in their video. Now, I think what happened was, I don't have anything to back this up, but I think Lars Ulrich came up with the idea for the song, hadn't seen the movie, then heard about the movie, and was like, crap, it's not that original of an idea. And so they put the clips in their music video. Then, because it was so expensive for them to play it on MTV, Metallica had to buy the rights to the movie. By the way, this is Metallica's first big hit. Now, it didn't launch them like Enter Sandman did a few years later, but this was their first music video on MTV.
Oh, wow, okay.
I think Metallica's great. I mean, as controversial as Ulrich specifically is, they've made some great, great music. And one is a great song. So I think for those reasons, the movie wasn't easy to get your hands on. And I don't know if it's just because Metallica owned the song and then had nothing else to do with it. Like, why should they? But now you can see it.
Yeah, it was easy to rent in a couple of different places.
But I think because of that, it's never been remastered, or at least to a great extent. And it looks like a TV movie. There's like a lot of motion blur. It doesn't just look like an American TV movie. It looks like a BBC movie with all the motion blur. You know how British movies blur more than American ones do? So it kind of feels like that. So it doesn't look very good. The scenes in the hospital bed don't need to. And the acting is, with the exception of Sutherland, pretty, I don't even know what to call it. It feels amateurish. These are all major pros. Oh, with the exception of the girl who played his girlfriend. I think this was her last movie and she'd only done like a handful of movies. And then she became a photographer on a lot of movie sets. But she didn't act much after this. So yeah, those are my thoughts on Johnny Got His Gun. Did the Academy like this movie at all?
No, I mean, nothing.
Even though Trumbo was back in the good graces of Hollywood by this point.
Yeah, nope, not at all. But it did play it was in competition at the Cannes Film Festival that year. It didn't win or anything, but it did play in competition. So it wasn't like a complete afterthought for everybody.
Got it. Should we move on to Bottom's second movie?
Yeah, let's do it.
The Wonderful World of Timothy Bottoms continues with The Last Picture Show. I chose it for you because it's one of my top 5 favorite movies. For me, this is just, I think, one of the greatest movies ever made. It's Bogdanovich's second movie, Peter Bogdanovich's second movie, which is pretty incredible. We talked last week about his movie Targets, which starred Boris Karloff as an aging movie star who feels like he has nothing left to offer the world. And then parallel to that, there's a sniper that's going on a killing spree, and the two plots eventually merge, and Karloff gets to like show his worth again at the end of it. But this is a movie about a small town that's dying and the young people who live in it. And I think it's fascinating because when you think about these rural towns, and you live in I wouldn't say rural, you live in like a tourist town. It's more off the beaten path. When I think about small towns like this, at least your town has an industry. This town, their industry has dried up. And what happens to the young people there? What do they do? Like, movie's about that. And Timothy Bottoms and Jeff Bridges play best friends. Jeff Bridges is dating the prettiest girl in town, played by Sybil Shepherd. And Timothy Bottoms is dating a much less attractive girl when the movie starts, and then ends up having an affair with Cloris Leachman. Both of those storylines are great, and they intersect and weave in and out with other people in the town, played by Ellen Burstyn. And Ben Johnson has an incredible role as the sort of de facto mayor of the town, the boss of the town, who this very sensitive cowboy type. And it's, so it's just about this small dying town in Texas. And in the background, there's a movie theater that's playing films, and I love movies, and there's a couple of them here. And its decline because of things that happen in the movie, which I guess we can spoil. The Ben Johnson character dies, and he leaves his various holdings in the town to different people, and they don't really know what they're doing. And so when the picture show goes out of business at the end of the movie is over. I think it's one of the greatest movies of all time.
Well, when did you first see it? Because you say it's one of your 5 favorites. Like, what's your relationship to the movie?
I saw it on TV when I was younger, and I didn't get it, but I was in love with Sybil Shepherd.
Who can blame you?
And then I saw it again during the pandemic and was like, yeah, this is everything I like about movies.
Did you watch it again for this?
Oh, I'm glad you asked. Last year, I bought the Criterion of this movie because I'd always wanted to watch its sequel called Texasville.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
So it was not well received when it came out. There, people said it was bloated and it didn't feel like it had the vibe of the first movie. It's about, well, I'll get into it more later, but it's about Jeff Bridges' character is now a millionaire because he found oil in the town. And it's about the JC character coming back to town and what that means but it's too wacky. It's like, it came out in the 80s and it's like, it's not like a Police Academy movie or anything, but it is like it's more wacky. Bridges cheats on his wife a ton, and it's very incestuous. Everyone in the town is sleeping with everyone else, including like the same women are sleeping with Bridges and his son. And at the same time, the Timothy Bottoms character is going through like a mental breakdown, and he's the mayor. I don't know, it's kind of dumb. But the reason I got the Criterion is because there's a version of the sequel that is the director's cut, which is 30 minutes longer, and it's in black and white.
Oh.
So I was like, I'll watch that version. And if that's not good, then it's not good. I watched it and it's not good. But I was able to also watch the original again for this with Bogdanovich's commentary that he did in 2003. I got to learn quite a bit more about like his thoughts on filming, who his influences are. Spoiler alert, they were Alfred Hitchcock for everything. He was obsessed with Hitchcock. And John Ford. John Ford was a huge influence on this movie, and you can tell it's cool because, the big John Ford thing that came out recently was in The Fabelmans, where John Ford is a character and he's played by David Lynch, and he talks about how you can make a horizon interesting in a movie. And Bogdanovich talks about that in 2003 he's like, and you can see the horizons at the bottom of the screen, clearly influenced by John Ford. Yeah. It's very cool. And I just love Bogdanovich. Like, I also love Paper Moon, and I also love Saint Jack and What's Up, Doc, and Noises Off. I'm a big Bogdanovich fan. I was really excited for you you'd never seen a Bogdanovich movie, so I was really excited to introduce you to one.
Yeah.
And this is his best one.
Yeah, that's amazing to me. Like, yeah, we talk about our movie blind spots. Bogdanovich has been a big one for me. I can't believe I've never seen one, particularly this one. So yes, thank you for recommending this one, for making me see it, because yes, this is a beautiful movie. I saw somebody refer to it on Letterboxd as No Country for Young Men.
That's great.
Gosh, what a great description of that movie. I wish I could take credit for that. I wish I would have come up with that. I don't know who said it, but I was like, that is such an amazing description of this movie in one sentence.
I'll tell you what, that's what the YouTube title of this episode is going to be.
But yeah, it's so perfect. And the performances in this movie are just so good. Even Timothy Bottoms, like, he's definitely a little bit green, but I still think he's very good in this. And Bridges, man, once I got past the fact, like, and I said this in my Letterboxd review, I don't know if you saw it, but like,
yeah, I did.
He seemed like he was always grown up, like he's just one of those guys. Like, I had never seen him in a movie where he looked so young before. So like, I had a hard time with that for about a minute, and then once I got past that, I mean, he's just pitch perfect in this movie.
Have you not? So you haven't seen his older movies?
I haven't seen many older Jeff Bridges movies. No, I mean, most of the stuff I've seen him in has been Jeff Bridges, or he's a grown man, he's the dude.
I'm kind of surprised. I think you would like Thunderbolt and Lightfoot, his movie with Clint Eastwood.
I bet I would. It's another one that's been on my radar that for, I don't know, whatever reason, I've just not gotten to.
Huh, interesting. Well, I'm really glad you liked it. What did you think of the Bottoms Leachman storyline?
I thought that was really wonderful. Cloris Leachman is someone, most known for, doing comedy.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of things, again, the Mel Brooks stuff, which we talked about, like Young Frankenstein on a recent episode.
And then Beverly Hillbillies, and in her old age was much more leaning towards comedy.
Yeah, much more known for comedy, and she's a lonely housewife in this. She's the basketball and football coach's wife. He's a very typical, very stereotypical comic book gym coach and or gym teacher, football coach. As he's yelling at the kids, he's spitting into his tobacco cup while he's yelling at them running their mile or whatever they're doing in their gym class, and he ignores his wife. She's just lonely and she's ignored. And
well, there's the suggestion, and there's a lot in the movie to back this up, that he's having an affair with one of his students, with one of his male students.
Oh, right. Yeah, there's definitely that going on too.
Yeah, so, and there's two things. There's like the glance that in the beginning when they're on the basketball court that he gives one of Timothy Bottoms' classmates. And then later, Bottoms is asking her, before they begin their affair, she randomly starts crying because he's being kind to her. Mm-hmm. And because she's sad about her life. And he asks her, he's like, oh yeah, coach must be busy with basketball. I guess that's why you don't see him much. And she looks at him, and one of the best lines in the movie, she goes, you just don't know anything about it, do you?
Yeah.
That's amazing.
She has those moments where she cries a little bit too, but nothing that she does feels like over the top, or like that she's ever being, hysterical or overacting any of it. It all feels, everything about her feels very natural. Like, it almost took me a minute to recognize that was her. Obviously I knew she was in this movie. She won her Oscar for this and everything. And I knew what part that she played everything, but it just took me a minute to actually just to recognize her as that, because she fell into that character. It was right away. It didn't take me any time. Like when I saw Jeff Bridges at first, I was like, oh wow, okay, that's a young Jeff Bridges. All right, let me get used to this for a minute. And then like, okay, cool. Now I'm with him as this character. And then even with Timothy Bottoms, I was like, oh gosh, okay, that's the guy from Johnny Got His Gun. I just watched him in another movie. Like, okay, let me get into this. But when I saw Cloris Leachman in this, I didn't have to do like, oh wow, that's her from the Mel Brooks movies or anything. I was just like, I was immediately like watching the lonely coach's wife sort of thing. And it was the reverse, where it didn't take me until much later until I realized like, yes, okay, this is Cloris Leachman in this part in here. She is so good in this, and I'm so happy that she won an Oscar for this. I really thought that relationship between the two of them was strong. I really thought that they both played it well right from the beginning.
Interesting story about her Oscar win. The thing they campaigned on was her big speech at the end. Bottoms is devastated because his friend has just died in an auto accident. His best friend, not Jeff Bridges. Jeff Bridges lives because he comes back for the sequel.
Yeah.
No, but a young friend of his who's played by his real life brother. He's a pedestrian. He's hit by a car. And no one in town really seems to care except him. Sam the Lion has died earlier in the movie, which is a big turning point for the town. And Jeff Bridges has gone off to fight in the Korean War. And JC, Sybil Shepherd, she has teased him along, making him think that they'll get married, and then is very pleased when her father won't allow it. So he's really depressed, and he's been neglecting Cloris Leachman because he's been chasing JC. He goes to her house, and she lets him have it for ignoring her and letting him treat her like he's just some kid, and she's let him treat her like an afterthought. That's the scene that won her Oscar. She did that in one take. She wanted to do more, and Bogdanovich's thing was, if I can't get it on the first take, it's probably never going to get to where I want it to be. Mm-hmm. So he didn't like doing too much rehearsing, and she kept saying like, I want to do more. He's like, we got it. He's like, this is it. We got it. And of course they did.
They did. Yeah. That feels right.
There's a Ben Johnson scene earlier in the movie where he takes the boys out to this lake. It's not really a lake. It's a man-made lake. And he tells the story of a girl he took out there. And it's sort of like this wistful, wonderful story about what his life was like growing up. And then later you find out it was Ellen Burstyn who he took out there. And she's JC's mother. She's also kind of like smoking in this movie.
Yeah.
She did a great ad-lib. I'll get back to the Ben Johnson thing in a second. But there's a scene early on where there's a town hoedown type thing. There's so many great things that happen in this scene, but one of them is the guy she's having an affair with walks in, guy Ellen Burstyn's having an affair with, walks in with his girlfriend, and she doesn't care that her husband's there. She walks up and kisses this guy for quite a while. And the girl's like, I ought to smack your face. And then burst and improvise, why don't you kiss my ass? It's so good. She's incredible. I love that she's still working. She's so good.
Yeah. Wow. That's Requiem for a Dream.
Requiem for a Dream was 20 years ago.
Yeah, I know.
She just did the new Exorcist movie.
I know. Yeah, it's crazy. comparing the her performance in Last Picture Show to like how she is in to
Oh yeah,
Requiem
yeah.
for a Dream. It's like, yeah, it's
So
great.
much range. There's another great scene at the hoedown where Timothy Bottom's character sees his father, and they act like they don't know each other. And it's like 10 seconds, 15 seconds, and it's all you need to know about his family. So Ben Johnson's given that speech, and I think he was nominated for an Academy Award for this too.
He won also.
Yeah, great speech, really well done. And they go back to that lake in the sequel, which is one of the only cool things about Texasville. And it's where Jeff Bridges reunites with Sybil Shepherd because she's swimming in the lake. That's a cool scene, actually. The stuff between the two of them, between Bridges and Shepherd in the sequel, that stuff's good. But it doesn't fit the tone of the rest of the movie. It's too bad. More good things about Last Picture Show. I really liked the transition from when they left to go to Mexico, Bridges and Bottoms, and how they come back and everything's changed. They've only been gone for 3 days, but everything's changed. I thought that was really well done. And just the bleak and dusty way they shot the town. The ceiling of the bar that Bottoms ends up owning is disgusting. It's like covered in tar from all the cigarettes people have smoked. It's just like it became very clear that this guy Bogdanovich, who started as a writer about film, he was a film critic, so he's clearly like a big nerd. It was clear that like he was going to be able to create this alchemy of things that he had loved into future greatness, and he did that in this and in Paper Moon especially. I'm so surprised you haven't seen more of him.
I am too, and Paper Moon. I'm going to put that up on. We've got a board. We've got our board where we write movies. I'm going to put Paper Moon up on the board.
It for sure works better than a Letterboxd watch list, which I add to and then never look at.
Right, exactly. Yeah, we've got a little board up in our house, which now my wife and I we watched Dr. Strangelove, which she had never seen before. So now anything that's a board now it's not just a board, it's the big board. We'll see the big board.
I hope it ends better for you than it did for them.
Yeah, maybe ours could actually end in a pie fight, like Dr. Strangelove was originally intended to.
Was that how it was supposed to end?
That was going to be the original ending. Yeah, well, that's why they had because you can see like they have that long table with like all the pies and stuff on it. Yeah, that's what that was going to be. It's going to originally end in a pie fight.
Well, we'll talk about that more when we bring Kevin back on for more Kubrick.
That's right. Yep.
What else struck you about Last Picture Show?
I mean, filming it in black and white obviously was the right choice. I mean, there's like you mentioned, like just the bleakness and the desolate. For Sonny and Dwayne, you really get introduced to how the town treats the kids and how like why the kids would not feel really any like connection to this town or to like the school spirit, because the first 5 minutes of the movie, the kids just all they hear is crap about how they lost the football game. You kids can't tackle anybody. You kid, you this, that you embarrass the town. Are you going to learn how to tackle? Are you going to do this or that? Why would they feel any pride in their town or their school or anything when that's how the adults and the townspeople treat them? Of course, why would they want to stick around there? It's kind of the self-fulfilling prophecy of this town is, wondering why it's dying, and it's eating itself, from the inside.
Yeah, 100%. That's so funny that you say that because I didn't even clock that, and it's a great point. I thought about it in terms of like there's such a huge age gap between the kids and then the next. There's no like next generation of people to take those kids under their wing. There's Sonny, Dwayne, JC, and then there's Randy Quaid's character. And you can see like there are rich kids in the town. These people are all going to jet. They're all going to get the hell out of there as soon as they can.
Mm-hmm.
And it just leaves this dusty town. Now, it turns out that's not what happened. What did happen was, and I always thought of Texasville as being like non-canonical. So the Last Picture Show, it was written by Larry McMurtry. And then Larry McMurtry wrote a sequel to Last Picture Show called Texasville. And Bogdanovich directed that sequel. And they brought back basically all the principals except for Ben Johnson, which one thing, Ben Johnson was dead, so they couldn't. And also the character was dead. And they didn't bring back Ellen Burstyn, which I was kind of surprised about. But they did bring, I guess because her character had probably died in the book. But they brought back everyone else, Leachman, Bottoms, Bridges, and Shepherd, and also Randy Quaid for some reason. Oh, Eileen Brennan came back too, which was pretty cool. And then they also had the big additional actor that they brought in to play Bridges' wife was Annie Potts, who did a good job in the role. She was
her. Yeah.
Yeah. But the movie is really like, so Potts and Bridges, they're super rich. Well, they've made a ton of money, but now he's $12 million in debt. So the town is about to die all over again. But it's also the 100th anniversary of the town. So they're getting this big celebration together. And JC has gone off and become an actress in Italy, but her son died. So now she's back in town mourning her son. And they want her to do a lot of performances for this anniversary show. But the movie is about how Bridges' kids don't respect him and they're crazy because they're just spoiled rich kids. And his oldest son is having affairs all over town, and so is Dwayne, but they're banging all the same women. It's very weird. There's no stakes that can happen because, first off, the fact that they switched the main focus from Sonny to Dwayne, I think was a mistake. Sonny is a more interesting character, and what Sonny's going through in the sequel is he's getting dementia, like really early onset dementia. But they don't focus on that. They focus on how it affects Bridges and how he's mad that he and Sonny, who are now the two leaders of the town, Sonny's the mayor, Bridges is the richest guy in town, and Randy Quaid runs the bank, how they're like losing control. But none of it's ever taken seriously. So I never cared. And then the question is like, will they, won't they? Will Jeff Bridges and JC end up together? But like, I didn't really care about that in Last Picture Show, because in Last Picture Show, it was more like, what's JC doing to Sonny, not to Dwayne?
She's cruel, by the way, in that first movie. She's just...
So she's not cruel in the sequel.
Yeah.
She's gone through a lot. Her son has died.
Right.
And no one's cruel. There's no like villain in the sequel, except Jeff Bridges is just sort of a dope. I don't know. I just think it was like pretty poorly constructed from the outset. That's a shame. I was really excited to watch the extended black and white version of it, and the black and white didn't do much for it. In fact, I think it may have worked better in color, because like it's not about a town. It's not about the town dying.
Yeah.
There are way fewer funny vignettes, like fun vignettes, like than there were in the original. It's a shame.
Yeah.
So this movie won a ton of Oscars, eh? Last Picture Show?
Well, no, it was nominated for 8, but it only won 2. And to be fair, 2 categories it was nominated twice, because both Jeff Bridges and Ben Johnson were nominated in supporting actor, and Ben Johnson won that. And then both Cloris Leachman and Ellen Burstyn were nominated in supporting actress, and Cloris Leachman won that. So yeah, so I could have won those categories once. And then it was up for picture, director, and adapted screenplay. Lost all of those to a movie that I have not seen, but you just recently informed me is overrated, The French Connection.
I don't like it.
I still need to watch it. I haven't yet, but it lost all 3 of those. And then Last Picture Show also nominated for cinematography and lost to another movie I have not seen called Fiddler on the Roof.
You haven't seen Fiddler on the Roof?
I've never seen Fiddler on the Roof.
I mean, you should just sit down one day and watch French Connection and Fiddler on the Roof.
Yeah.
French Connection is one of the most racist, by design, one of the most racist movies I've ever seen.
Oh, yeah, Popeye Doyle, yeah.
Yeah. Well, the biggest legacy this movie has is that Peter Bogdanovich started dating Sybil Shepherd right after this. She was 18, I want to say, maybe 19. Pretty icky. They made a few other movies together and then they broke up. But they kept working together after that. So, like, she came back for Texasville. So, couldn't have been so bad. Although, yuck. He was in his late 20s, early 30s. Not great.
Not good.
Not great. Let's do our top 10s for 1971.
Let's do it. You know what? I watched a new movie last night just so I could have a top 10.
That's fantastic. And it got over 3 stars?
It did get over 3 stars. I was a little worried, but it did make it over 3. So
we don't need a redo of our 1979 debacle.
Nope. What a disaster. Okay,
so just real quick, these aren't really honorable mentions, but they are. I'm mentioning them, so they're honorable mentions. The Anderson Tapes. It's a Sidney Lumet heist film starring Sean Connery. Pretty fun. Charlton Heston's The Omega Man. It's a kind of a zombie movie. Vampire, maybe? I don't know. It's a weird post-apocalyptic movie. My number 12 would have been Johnny Got His Gun, and my number 11 is Fiddler on the Roof. And also, I'm going to just do the disclaimer right now. This is a big year for Walter Matthau, so he shows up in my list a bunch. Number 10 is The Plaza Suite, the Arthur Hiller series of vignettes, all starring Walter Matthau as different men who are occupying the Plaza Hotel in New York. It's very funny, and it's a lot of Matthau. Number 9 is Koch. This is the only movie Jack Lemmon ever directed. Walter Matthau put on old man makeup to play an old guy who connects with a young pregnant woman who needs help, and they go off and live in a more secluded area so she can have her baby without the prying eyes of her community. It's not his baby. He just wants to help her. Number 8 is A Clockwork Orange. This is Kubrick's nasty movie about nasty people doing nasty things. Malcolm McDowell's incredible in it. It's a tough one, though.
Yeah.
Number 7 is Dirty Harry, Don Siegel's action epic starring Clint Eastwood and Andrew Robinson as the killer. Andrew Robinson, important to me because he's the co-lead in Charlie Varick. It's great. It started a franchise. I like the second one better, actually. I like Magnum Force better than Dirty Harry, but Dirty Harry also very good. Then next up, number 6 is George Lucas's THX 1138. This was his debut, right?
Yes, first feature. Yep.
Yeah, you can tell. It feels a little clunky in places, but Robert Duvall placed the titular THX in this very fascistic future where everyone is a series of letters instead of a number. Everyone's engineered and their society's engineered, and he needs to escape after his partner. I'm pretty sure I don't know if it's explicitly stated that she's killed, but she is taken away. It's a good first effort. After watching it, you wouldn't guess this guy made Star Wars.
Right.
Very
that would not be the next, the guess for the next thing.
Right. It's very different kind of sci-fi. Well, it wasn't the next thing. The next thing was American
Oh, yeah,
Graffiti.
American Graffiti was next. Yeah, then Star Wars.
My number 5 is A New Leaf, another Walter Matthau movie. Again, I've talked about all these in the Walter Matthau retrospective, but this is the one he did. It was directed by and stars Elaine May, one of the few female directors Matthau worked with. He plays a rich. It's a kind of a trading places type story, except no one trades places. He's a rich guy who's run out of money, and he needs to marry her for her money, but she's kind of hopeless, and in her hopelessness, he kind of learns to love her. My number 4 is Steven Spielberg's debut film, although not his debut theatrical film, right. Duel, a TV movie about a guy who crosses the wrong dude on the road and then has to run away from a truck for a long time. The movie Joyride, which I talked about for a different top 10, has a lot to, and also one of my favorite thrillers.
Can I guess?
Yeah.
Is it the Kurt Russell movie Breakdown?
It is the Kurt Russell movie.
I love that movie. J.T. Walsh is so good in that too.
Breakdown and Joyride both have a lot of thanks to give to Duel. The lead of Duel is played by Dennis Weaver. He's not as compelling as Kurt Russell or even Steve Zahn and Lily Sobieski or Paul Walker, but the movie's great. I mean, it's so tense. I thought I watched it on Criterion not too long ago. It doesn't appear to be on the Criterion channel right now, though. My number 3 is Mike Nichols' Carnal Knowledge. This movie set me on an Art Garfunkel fandom that I wasn't expecting to have, but he's great in this. And then so are Jack Nicholson and Candice Bergen. So it's about 3 generations of women that Art Garfunkel and Jack Nicholson are into. And they are played by, in order of appearance, Candice Bergen, Anne Margaret, and Carol Kane. Rita Moreno's also in this for a little bit in a nice little role. Anyway, this movie is... you've seen... What's that last Mike Nichols movie that he made with the 4 people?
Closer?
So there's like Closer vibes. So Carnal Knowledge.
Yeah, good movie.
Yeah. My number 2 is Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory. I know this won't appear on your list, so I'm glad it's on mine because this movie is great and Gene Wilder is the best. And I loved this movie as a kid and I could rewatch it 100. I think I know every word. Roald Dahl, despite his rabid anti-Semitism, he wrote some good books that were made into some good movies. And my number 1 is The Last Picture Show.
What?
One of the greatest movies of all time.
All right. I have a top 10 now. Just after last night, I was able to cobble together a top 10. And my number 10 is actually Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory. I would guess it at about 3 stars. I don't actively dislike the movie. I don't love it the way a lot of people of our generation love it and revere it. I think it's very okay.
It's a 5-star movie. It's a 5-star film.
Yeah, I'm very much in the minority, like I said, amongst our generation, but I think it's very okay. It's my number 10 movie of 1971. My number 9 movie of 1971 is one that I do remember liking a lot. I just haven't seen it in a long time, but it's Spielberg's Duel. I do remember liking that a lot. And my number 8 is a movie that we'll actually talk about later on in relation to a different movie that I chose for you, but it's Sweet Sweetback's Badass Song. It's a blaxploitation film from obviously 1971 is what we're talking about. But it's a Melvin Van Peebles film, which he saves a Black Panther from some racist cops. And then basically he just goes on the run after that and just tries to stay away from them. The tagline for the movie was "the film that the man doesn't want you to see," and it's really cool. And then the film his son Mario made later on is just called Badass. And that's the film I chose for you for 2003. So we'll talk a little bit more about these both of those when we get to that year.
Do I need to see Sweet Sweetback in order to understand Badass?
You do not. I think it would help just because Badass is about the making of Sweet Sweetbacks.
Oh,
so I think they'd be cool to watch together, but I wouldn't say that it's absolutely necessary.
So I will.
Yeah. And then my number 7 would be the James Bond film from that year, Diamonds Are Forever. Not a classic James Bond film, but it's solid, enjoyable. It would be Sean Connery's last legitimate James Bond film because we're not counting Never Say Never Again. It's
we're not counting it? You made me watch it for this podcast and we're not counting it now?
Well, it's not an official James Bond film. I mean, I'm not saying it doesn't exist. I mean, it's real, but it's not part of the Eon family of Bond films. So
I heard an interesting thing recently on Sean Fennessy's podcast where he said they should do more things while they're looking for the new Bond or while they haven't signed the new Bond. They should just do one movie with Tom Hardy, just to see what it would be and not to screw up his career too much by getting him stuck in Bond, but let people make one who want to make one.
Yeah, that's just definitely not how they operate, though.
No, they're stupid.
Yeah.
You know that I read recently that the Broccoli family claims that they invented broccoli?
Cannot be true.
It isn't true. It's not true based on how scientists understand broccoli came to be. Is they just lie about that.
It's kind of a weird flex.
Yep.
Ritz. All right, bringing us to number 6, and the film I watched last night, just so I could have a top 10. It made your list as well. It is George Lucas's THX 1138. Yeah, definitely a debut movie, but it's got some cool stuff in it, some neat visuals. Yeah, definitely an interesting movie. One I'm glad I finally saw. I like Lucas's early movies because I like this movie, and then I think American Graffiti is also really, really good.
Totally.
Then my number 5 and 4 are a little bit similar. I watched them a couple of years ago when Jeff Richards and I were doing our kind of road movies series. Number 5 is a movie called Vanishing Point. It's about a guy who basically, when people need cars delivered to them, and they were talking about like shady people, who need cars for whatever their shady purposes are, he delivers them, delivering a car to somebody, and then he takes a bet from someone that he can get the car there in like less than 15 hours. Sure, why not? And then it's just, it's kind of like, things happen to him kind of along the way from there. Very, very cool movie.
So that was directed by Richard Serafian.
Yes.
And Barry Newman is the star, right?
Yep, that's right.
Oh, Cleavon Little's in that. That's fun.
Yeah, I think you'd really like the movie. It's very, very cool.
Cool. I'll check it out.
And then the number 4 movie is directed by Monty Hellman and stars former President James Taylor. It's called Two-Lane Blacktop. It's a driver and mechanic who travel around the United States, and they race for money, like a Fast and Furious sort of thing. Yeah.
Can we just make it clear that it's not former President James Taylor, and it is the singer-songwriter James Taylor who's in this movie?
It is singer-songwriter James Taylor, and it's definitely not a role I would have pictured James Taylor being in based on the songs that he sings.
Yeah.
Then my number 3, these will all be familiar titles from here. Number 3 is Johnny Got His Gun. Despite the many flaws that it does have that we talked about, the acting and some of the flashbacks is pretty rough, but I think overall the scope of the movie and some of the things they do with it are really, really neat. My number 2 is Kubrick's Clockwork Orange, which is, rough. It's bad people doing bad things for a long time, but it's really inventive. It's visually very stunning. Malcolm McDowell is really, really cool in it. Can't hear Singing in the Rain without picturing Malcolm McDowell kicking that old guy. It's a very memorable movie. It's a hard one to shake once you've seen it. And then number 1 is The Last Picture Show.
Yay, I love when movies I recommend become number 1.
It's a great feeling, isn't it?
That's great. Now that you've been Bogdanovich pilled, it's time to watch more of his movies.
Absolutely.